My name's Scott Thellman, and I'm with Juniper Hill Farms. We're based out of Lawrence, Kansas. It's a first-generation farm. We started about 10 years ago doing hay and alfalfa and traditional commodity crops, but slowly realized that it made more sense to get into some of those higher-end crops, those higher-dollar crops. And so we started working our way into vegetables, tomatoes, bell peppers, lettuce, greens. And from there, this year when Kansas opened up the industrial hemp research program, we kind of said, why not? And just jumped in. We figured it'd be fun to grow a new crop. We always love growing something new and different. So
yeah. So how did that work? So this is just for research purposes for the most part.
Yes.
with K-State or with KU?
With Kansas Department of Agriculture.
Okay, with Kansas.
And so yeah, we have a permit with the Kansas Department of Agriculture for our hemp program. It's been fairly regulated from day one, including background checks for everybody that was, going to be able to touch the hemp, handle the hemp, and all of that. And it's just been a very interesting experience, paperwork-wise and logistics-wise and growing-wise and harvest-wise. And now we've got a big barn full of dope.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So as you started into that, did you get like the seed from Kansas Department of Ag? They came out and said, here's where you're gonna grow it, here's how much fertilizer you need, here's how to plant it. How hands-on were they versus how much did you have to just learn?
That's a good question. So because it was a research program, they really left it up to us. And so we all had to submit research proposals to the state of Kansas, to the KDA, which then they reviewed and approved or denied.
Okay.
We approved, which was cool. But then we had to go out and start finding seed, different things like that. And it got to be interesting to find good certified seed. That was one of the requirements, was either AOSCA certified or State Department of Ag certified. And that got to be pretty tricky as you started talking to people all over the country. And seed prices ranged anywhere from the low end, in that 10 to 20 cents per seed to $2 a seed.
Huh.
And so, we were able to find some on the cheaper end. My whole goal with this was to not go in, gangbusters and start dropping tons of money like a lot of people in Colorado or Washington State or Kentucky started with, and I think are seeing some issues, on the return end.
So you're telling me I need to sweep up your floor because there's seeds all over the floor here.
We're gonna.
So if I swept up your floor, I would make a lot of money.
Yeah, if it were certified.
Oh, if it were certified.
But maybe you could be one of those brokers that's a little on the sketch side.
Under the table.
But anyway, so we planted them in a greenhouse after we received the seed. We started them in one of our greenhouses that we start vegetable transplants and everything in. And from there, essentially transplanted them out into our field with the same water wheel transplanter we use for tomatoes and lettuce and kale. It was very similar to growing a tomato plant.
Huh.
I mean, if any of you guys are good at growing tomato plants at home, it's not too much different.
So coming to a tomato farmer near you, you're diversifying your operation, you're growing hemp now. I like
growing
it.
CBD.
Okay, so what was the timeline on this? So get it straight in my mind and everybody's mind, was this in April 2019? What's kind of the timeline of how all this happened?
The Farm Bill passed kind of late summer last year. Yeah. Kansas came in with an initial pre-application last November that essentially a friend kind of convinced me to apply for, just out of curiosity to see, how we might develop our research program. We were approved for that, but then we had to then resubmit an approval to the Department of Ag that was due at the end of February. We found out middle of April that we had received the licenses. We paid our licensure fees, and then had the seed about 3 days later, and started planting in the greenhouse, I think, April 19th. Okay. So right around that 420 that everybody, that's pretty funny. 420. Yeah, right around that 420 everybody talks about.
So transplanted in April, and then you're watering it, fertilizing during the year, split applying. How does that kind of work?
Yeah, so we came in and essentially laid drip line, just like we would with lettuce, kale, or anything like that. And then we were doing a combination of both foliar fertilizer and drip line fertilizer, through the drip line fertigation.
Yep.
As I said earlier, it's very similar to a tomato plant in terms of needing nitrogen to get started, but then once it starts getting to the floral stage, you really cut back on the nitrogen. You don't want overgrowth.
For sure.
And that's when you're going in with your P and your K and your micros and really hitting it. Calcium was also a really big thing.
For sure.
We had an agronomist in the area who was kind of our third-party research, which was something I was really wanted to make sure we had. I mean, Kansas Department of Ag didn't require it. However, it just didn't seem right to me to have a research program without a third party being able to do soil samples, tissue samples, and really have that unbiased approach. And so Jason was out here in the season just about every week, crop scouting. You know, and I think one thing, you know, I've seen a lot of other growers of hemp in the region, especially the larger farmers, go into it, of thinking about it as a traditional row crop, which down the road will be there. Especially for the fiber and the seed, you know, as we get into the larger scale production. But, you know, growing this this floral variety, you know, the CBD varieties, it is very much more like a vegetable. It's very more intensive. And so, you know, we were out there just about every day, whether it's cutting male plants or weeding. You know, we definitely made some mistakes, but for our first year, I'm not too
it seems
unhappy.
like it went well. So what were you having any issues in with like the maintaining THC levels? Because it have to be really low. THC levels as low as under a certain threshold. CBD levels as high as possible.
Exactly. And so, you know, the whole goal is to, you know, and I think a lot of producers out there that are using, you know, enterprise budgets and maximizing efficiency and you know, yield curves and all of that are getting to that point of maximum yield versus maximum quality. And that's really what we were going for is, you know, how much CBD can we pump without getting THC above legal limits or beating a freeze like we had last night in terms of harvest. And so we started testing middle of August. And sending a test to K-State every week where they test for the THC levels in the CBD. Got to the point where we realized we probably needed to submit our harvest report, our pre-harvest report. We had to submit that to the KDA 30 days prior to harvest, which for being a guy that's never grown industrial hemp,
kind of hard to
go,
know
I think this is the week, a month from now, we'll be harvesting. I mean, I figured we'd be harvesting in August, and we didn't start till the end of September. You know, I figured early August and we'd be done, and the field would be planted in cover crops and you're all settled by now. But unfortunately,
doesn't work out like that.
We got to learn a few things this year.
So what'd you see with those results then? Like, was anything thrown out of whack, or it was basically pretty easy to just maintain the right levels?
As we followed it, you saw the CBD raising about about a half percentage point or so every few weeks. But about the maximum we hit was about 1.8. Or 0.18, I'm sorry, 0.18. So we were still 0.12% under the legal limit of 0.3%. I know a few guys in the state of Kansas have tested hot, which essentially has required them to either have a sheriff or KDA or some official there as they destroy a crop. And these crops, you know, they aren't
it's a lot of money.
Especially one of the guys I heard had 120 acres. They had to mow down, and they couldn't bale it, they couldn't feed it. It had to be destroyed right there. That's no fun.
No, that's a disaster.
That's a huge disaster.
Okay, so what's the market for this? Because I know that, like, I've been talking with some guys over in Illinois and stuff that, like, they've got all this hemp now and like CBD hemp, and like there's nowhere to take it. How do you manage that market?
So our seed source in Colorado, one of the larger companies in Colorado, is willing to buy it back. I'm trying to keep it in the state right now, just to help contribute to the industrial research hemp program that all of us are participating in. And so I'm hoping to work with a distributor or processor in our state. A few that I've been working with or talking to just to me seem a little flaky. And you know, I can't blame them. I mean, I probably sound a little flaky when I'm on the phone too, because I've never grown it before. I'm just kind of going with the flow.
Like, you have 3 acres and they're like, well, is this guy like a real player or not? So it might not fully get their attention maybe too.
Exactly. But you know, some of the bigger CBD, bigger in terms of quality and producing the highest value crops are those 2 or 3 acre farms in Tennessee that are just maximizing it. And they're having plants that, you know, this one stands, after harvest, about 4 feet tall, something like that. They have plants that are 10 or 12 feet tall, and the buds are, you know, this big. It's stunning.
I've heard some. I want to say my buddy Jeremiah was talking about like 18% CBD and stuff like that, 18%.
No, there's some guys that are really pulling it off, but usually when you get to that high of a CBD percentage, you are going to come in above that THC level of 0.3%. And you know, if you're in the state of Colorado or Oregon, or different states like that, that's not so big of a deal.
Sure.
If you have that recreational and medical grower's license as well, which I think a lot of guys in Washington State in particular transitioned from growing recreational or medical back into the CBD
Just
because it
CBD.
proved to be more profitable.
Okay, so how much do you expect that you're going to have here? Like, how many tote bags is this gonna be?
So a tote bag of hemp, from what I've learned, and once again, first year, so I'm a little new to this game,
Right.
but is about 500 pounds. So it's not that 2,200 pound super sag.
No.
But about 500 pounds of floral material. I would anticipate in this barn we've got about 3,000 or 4,000 pounds of dry floral material,
Okay.
which is not too far off of what we were hoping for yield-wise. Being first year and not knowing what the hell we were doing, but I don't have a good answer of how much it's going to be.
Right.
We need to submit to the state within about 30 days of how much weight we have up here.
Yeah.
And we didn't even count how many plants we ended up harvesting just because we had
And you harvested all these by hand?
Yes. So
Like just kind of sawed them off, it looks
yeah.
like?
So a lot of them actually.
Or you could probably use
it
the
was
clippers
funny.
for some.
My whole plan initially was to cut it in the field with a sickle mower.
Yeah.
Bring in our old Gleanier combine we have sitting on the other side of the river, throw them through, and just leave the sieves open, and just let the material just drop right through.
I see.
And then just auger it right into
Yeah.
totes, and just keep it real simple, and probably lose some stuff, but hey, have fun doing it. Have a couple beers and watch the hemp harvest.
That's awesome.
But unfortunately, we received our harvest permit, and we had 10 days from the day we received it. Well, out of those 10 days, about 8 of them it was raining. So we really only had about 2 days, so we couldn't dry it in the field.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, I was up here the next day putting up baling twine and string lines. And,
I like it.
Figuring out how the hell we were going to make this happen.
Yeah.
We took the sickle bar mower down, and it worked for a few of the smaller stalks, but
Some of these are pretty big.
yeah, some of them.
Some
there's
of them
one
that are
over
solid
here.
2 inches around. 2 inch diameter.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that guy.
this guy's dried down. It was about
Sure.
maybe 3 inches in diameter initially.
I didn't realize that it's really woody and like it's
It really
bushy.
when you think about it,
It's
down
not-
the road, the fiber aspects are huge.
Oh, yeah.
It's stunning. But essentially, the sickle bar mower wasn't going to go.
No.
It wasn't going to work that well on some of this big stuff. And so, it sounds funny, but we took some of our chainsaws and switched out the bar
that's what
oil
it looked like.
for food grade, vegetable oil we use in the vegetable side of the business, and went to town.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Threw them in the back of the old grain truck and brought them up and passed them up through the little barn door over there and started hanging.
That's awesome.
So it was
It's a
definitely
lot
neat
of manual
experience.
labor, that's for sure. But
Yeah.
So as you're talking with other farmers, and whatnot, or like guys that are listening and watching this, what's your kind of message to them of people that are kind of interested, but are sounds like kind of like you and me, like I don't know, like
Yeah.
just kind of go for it. What's your message to somebody new?
I won't say it's not a good idea.
Yeah.
But I really, ask me in a few months, I
Right.
might have a good answer of whether or not it's worth doing.
Yeah.
It was such a new thing, and we were just intrigued by it. We had a few acres of extra vegetable ground this year that, before the floods hit, it sounded like a great idea, and now we're kind of wishing we had that acreage in vegetables.
Sure.
Down here around Kansas, like many parts of Iowa and Minnesota, Nebraska, and elsewhere, we had a lot of flooding this year. And it really crippled us. Being first generation, I don't have thousands of acres all scattered about that's in, tillable ground. All of our stuff is along the river valleys. And so, the 48 acres I own literally borders the Kansas River. And so, it was underwater about 3 times this year.
Yeah.
So, it made for a very difficult year and a lot of loss on the vegetable side of the business. And so, those few acres we had, in hemp, you're going, oh, we could have had winter squash there.
Okay, so you're not that far out of Kansas City. You're really close to Lawrence.
Yeah.
You've got to be thinking about security here, and how do you protect this stuff from bad people?
So it's funny, when we signed up for the application, I'm thinking about new gates and trail cams and signs that say you can't, you can smoke a telephone pole and you'll get a headache and, things like that, to try and deter people. And we ended up getting busy and really not putting any up. And, we didn't talk publicly about it
Yeah.
throughout the whole growing season. If we had tours out here, we had some state senators, we had Kansas Farm Bureau,
Cool.
Different representatives of the Federal Reserve and whatnot come out to the farm to see the hemp. But beyond that, we were very quiet. Anybody who came out during the growing season, we said, take as many pictures as you want, just don't share them till October.
Right.
And then once we harvested, we knew we had a crop, we announced it.
Yeah.
We actually had a tour out here last week that probably brought 600 or 800 people.
Oh, wow.
Throughout the weekend, kind of an open house, and I'd say this was one of the more popular areas to be. Was
Yeah.
up in the corner over back there in the hemp barn.
Yeah.
But it was something I was very worried about to begin with, but then kind of quickly realized that it's either maybe I was more in the sense that if somebody wanted to come steal my dope, go ahead.
Right.
It's.
Well, and they're quickly going to realize like it's not really going to do it's not going to do anything for you.
Yeah, exactly. It's the rural American farmer
Right.
that is
Doing this large scale and
trying to
stuff, too.
find that next crop that might add to a rotation, might make that farm more sustainable cash flow wise, might make it more sustainable economically,
Right.
Or sustainable, just environmentally
Yeah.
more sustainable in terms of that third rotation
For sure.
crop. And so it'll be interesting to see what the banking system does, what crop consultants do, what seed companies do.
Definitely.
When I bought my seed, it came in a little mason jar. Overnighted
awesome.
on FedEx. I mean, I just opened it up and there's a jar of dope seed.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, okay. I guess
That's
this is how this industry works.
Yeah.
It was hilarious.
No like packaging. Or
No,
anything on
it just had Sharpie on the side that said cherry wine.
That's awesome.
That's all I got.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was hilarious.